You're on a machine that doesn't tolerate error. This might irritate you. Good. Revenue doesn't drift. Margins don't get guessed. Numbers don't get felt. And yet, there's one domain where you've made an exception. This isn't about food. This is about something you allow that you wouldn't tolerate from anyone else. You are precise, measured, dangerous with detail, until this. I ask you to track something simple and the standard disappears. Not slowly, instantly. The same man who audits six-figure decisions suddenly becomes philosophical. This isn't sustainable. I already know what I'm doing. I don't want to be obsessive. You hear it? Or not yet? You've known what to do for years. Same awareness, same intention, same result. That's not a phase, that's a pattern. And the gap is still there between the man you reference and the one that shows up. So let's make this clean. You don't hate tracking. You hate exposure. This is Iron Suits, where strength wears the crown. I am Marwan. Let's lay this out cleanly. Monday morning, you're in your office or home, set up by 6:45. You pull your CRM. You check the close rate from last week. You look at the pipeline velocity. You flag 2 deals that are stalling. You send a message to your sales lead before the team is awake. You already know which number is wrong before the weekly meeting starts. That same Monday, lunch is something. A meeting ran over. You grabbed what was available. It was fine. You ate until you were full. You've been doing this for years and you generally eat pretty well, so you're not worried. Tuesday, you're reviewing margins. You know your cost per acquisition to 2 decimal points. You know your payroll percentage. You flagged a vendor invoice last quarter because it was 4% over forecast. 4%, you caught it. Tuesday night dinner, glass of wine, good protein, some carbs. You're not sure exactly how much, probably fine. You would know if something was off. Wednesday, you sit with your CFO. You go through the burn rate. You model 3 different scenarios for the next 18 months. You stress test assumptions. You don't accept vague answers. You push until the number is defensible. Wednesday, gym session, 40 minutes. Good effort. You felt strong. Progress is probably happening. No way to really know, but it feels right. In business, feeling right is not a metric. In your body, suddenly it is. You know what's interesting? The more intelligent the operator, the more sophisticated the avoidance. If this mattered enough, I would already have it handled. This is not an attack. This is a pattern. and you know patterns. You look for them every day. The pattern here is clear. Total measurement in the domain where you're winning. Total avoidance in the domain where you're not. That's not coincidence. That's control. You've built a system where you only face numbers that confirm who you believe you are. The rationalizations are sophisticated. These aren't the excuses of someone who doesn't care. They are the rationalizations of someone who thinks carefully and has thought carefully about why they don't need to do this. Let's drop the surface level, because that's not what it is. Let's go through them. I already know what to eat. Exactly. That's why this isn't a knowledge problem. It's a compliance problem. And compliance doesn't improve with awareness. You already know what to eat. That's not the issue. If knowledge solved this, you wouldn't still be carrying it. But knowing the model and executing the model with precision are two entirely different things. You know business models too. Knowing Porter's 5 forces doesn't make you profitable. Execution against a standard, measurable, tracked, reviewed, is what closes the gap between knowing and performing. You know this. You apply it everywhere except here. At your level, that's not a small miss. That's a standard leak. Standards leak, not standard. Plural. Which means this isn't a knowledge gap, it's a standards gap. I eat pretty clean. Clean compared to what? Your last version or the standard you claim to hold now? It's not that bad. It's definitely not as bad as it used to be. Probably true. Also not the point, and you know that. Clean is a description. It is not a number. You wouldn't accept clean as an answer in a board meeting. You wouldn't accept clean if your head of marketing told you your campaign was performing. You would ask for the number. You would ask for the data. You'd make them defend it with something measurable. Pretty clean has the same informational value as we're growing. It tells you nothing about the gap between where you are and where you need to be. I just need to tighten up. This one is particularly telling because it implies you already know what the problem is, and the fix is simple, and you wouldn't do it any time, and you could do it any time, and you would have chosen not to yet. You simply would have chosen not to yet. But tighten up has been the plan for a long time. Months in most cases. Sometimes years. The same project has been in the backlog with the same status since you first put it there. Not urgent, not critical, just sitting. In business, a project that never moves off the backlog isn't deprioritized, it's avoided. Tracking isn't sustainable. Tracking isn't sustainable. Neither is guessing. You just don't feel the cost of guessing immediately. This is the most polished rationalization. It sounds like wisdom. It sounds like someone who has moved past the obsessive phase into something more balanced and mature. Except you have an entire department that tracks revenue sustainably. You have dashboards that run continuously. You have quarterly reviews, annual projections, rolling forecasts. That is all the tracking. You have never once suggested that tracking your business isn't sustainable and that you should just feel your way through it. Sustainable is what you call something you don't want to start. Here's what tracking actually does. It removes narratives. What if I track it and it's worse than I thought? Right now, without tracking, you have access to a story. That story is flexible. It can accommodate any outcome. On a good week, you ate well and trained hard, and you're making progress. On a bad week, it was a stressful period. Travel disrupted things, but you're generally on track. The story is always coherent. The story always preserves your identity as someone who has this under control. The moment you start tracking, the story ends. I don't actually want to know. You don't have a discipline problem. You have a visibility problem. There is no narrative layer between you and the number. The number doesn't care about the business trip. It doesn't care about stress. It doesn't factor in the stress. It doesn't grade you on a curve because the Q3 close was brutal. It is simply what happened, calories consumed, protein hit or not, deficit maintained or erased. And if the number is wrong, if the data shows what you believed about your eating is not what was actually happening, you have to sit with that. Not adjust the story, not contextualize, actually sit with it. Data doesn't negotiate. That's precisely why you avoid it. There's something else tracking does that is even more threatening to a man at your level. It replaces identity with performance. Right now, your identity in this area is intact. You are someone who is generally healthy, someone who is active, someone who, if he really committed, could get into exceptional shape. The potential is clearly there. The identity is preserved. Tracking puts your identity on trial every single day. You are no longer generally healthy. You are either hitting your targets or you're not. The identity of potential is replaced by the reality of execution. And for a man whose identity is built on execution, the gap is not comfortable to measure. Selective discipline is not discipline, it's ego management. You have built your professional self on the willingness to be measured, to be judged by outcome, to accept that results are the only honest evaluation. You have applied that standards to everyone around you. You have let go of people who couldn't perform. You have made difficult calls because the numbers demanded them. But there is one domain where you have quietly, persistently allowed yourself a different standard. One domain where intent is weighed equally with result, where effort is considered, where the story is allowed to continue despite the evidence. That exception is not balance. It is not wisdom. It is not a mature relationship with health. It is protected space. It is a protected space. And you build the protection yourself. Let's be precise about what's actually happening. You don't resist tracking. You resist being measured in a domain where you don't win. That's not a health belief. That is a performance protection strategy. You track what you respect. You avoid what exposes you. And if you're honest, this isn't about health anymore. It's about self-respect. Consider what that reveals. If you track revenue obsessively, it is because you take revenue seriously. The tracking is a signal of the respect you have for the outcome. You would have never leave revenue unmonitored because revenue matters to you deeply. If you refuse to track food, if you resist measurement in that domain, what does that reveal about the respect you have for the outcome here? Not the stated respect, not the aspiration, the actual demonstrated behavioral respect. The avoidance is the data, and the avoidance says somewhere beneath a stated priority, you do not fully respect this enough to face the number. You respect your image of yourself in this area more than you respect the actual performance in this area. That is a meaningful thing for a man who has built his identity on the willingness to face hard numbers. The domain you refuse to measure is the domain that is measuring you at your level. At your level, you don't get to opt out of measurement. That's the whole game, except here. This is not a call to obsess over food. This is not a pitch for meal prep culture or macro spreadsheet or weighing your rice in a corporate cafeteria. That's not what this is. This is a doctrine, where's that come from? And the doctrine is simple. Precision builds power. In every domain you have mastered, precision preceded power. You did not feel your way into operational excellence. You measured, you identified the variance, you eliminated what wasn't working, you built systems around what was. Precision was a mechanism, power was the outcome. The body is not a different system. It is the same system, inputs, outputs, variance, measurement adjustments. The same framework you applied to a business unit applies here with equal force. There is no reason, no legitimate reason to believe it operates differently. Metrics reveal truth. All other methods reveal preferences. You already know this. You've known it since early in your career, when you stopped running a company on intuition and started running it on data. That transition was uncomfortable. It revealed gaps. It made visible what you had preferred to leave vague. And it made you substantially more effective. The same transition is available to you in this domain. You've outgrown guesswork in every area, except the one that shows. What gets measured gets governed. You have said something like this in a meeting. You have said it to your team. You have built cultures around this principle. Apply it here. Apply it with the same seriousness you would apply it to any critical business function. What gets measured gets governed. What gets avoided gets worse. The question is not whether you're capable of this. You're already capable of this. If I fix this, there's nowhere left to hide. The question is whether you're willing to remove the protected space, whether you're willing to end the narrative and face the number, whether the man who accepts accountability everywhere else is willing to accept it here. If the answer is no, if this domain remains the only place where you permit yourself to operate without the data, that is a choice. Own it as a choice. Don't dress it up as philosophy. But if you're serious, if you apply the same standard to yourself that you apply to the people who work for you, then you already know what to do. Measure it. Not because tracking is fun, not because logging food is a dignified use of a CEO's time, but because refusing to measure something is not neutrality. It is surrender. And you already decided a long time ago that surrender was not something you do. If you refuse to measure it, you didn't lose control. You gave it up. This doesn't correct itself. It compounds quietly until it becomes who you are. So here's a real question, not the comfortable one, the real one. If I fix this, there's nowhere left to hide. And if this landed, message me standard on Facebook. Look for Marwan Killu. I'll show you how we install this properly without turning your life into a fitness routine. And that's all I got for you today. I hope this episode brought value. If it did, share it with another leader. As iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another. Follow me on my socials. I am on Facebook under Marwan Killu, LinkedIn, Marwan Killu Fitness, YouTube, Marwan Killu, if you want to watch this on YouTube. And finally, subscribe to the show so you get notifications when a new episode go live and you don't miss it. And so you don't miss it. Until next time, have a great day and I'll see you on the next episode.